Welcome to Emerge, everybody, and welcome to Chicago. It is so special for me to be able to celebrate the Financial Health Network's 20th anniversary right here in our hometown because my family is here somewhere, I think. They promised they wouldn't do the wave. Thank you. That makes me just a little bit more nervous. So I wasn't born here, but I've lived here for over 30 years. And aside from the winter months, Chicago really is my kind of town. Now, do we have any New Yorkers in the audience? Well, I'm sure that many of you have heard Chicago called the second city because supposedly we are second to the Big Apple. I beg to differ. In fact, I prefer a different version of the story for how Chicago got that nickname. It dates back to 1871, when it's said that Mrs. O'Leary's cow knocked over a lantern in the family's barn, igniting a blaze that raced through Chicago and into downtown. And by the time it was extinguished, the first city lay in ashes. A group of innovative architects leveraged a technology that could withstand the heat of fire, steel, and the steel enabled them to build in an entirely new way, up. And so at 10 stories tall, the home insurance building became known as the world's first skyscraper, and Chicago became known as the second city, a place of grit, progress, and possibility. I came back to the city of Chicago in 1994, and the city's can-do spirit really rubbed off on me. I came back for graduate school at the University of Chicago on the city's south side, about a 30-minute drive from the north side neighborhood where I was living. And so every weekday morning, I would leave my largely white, upscale neighborhood filled with apartment buildings and manicured flower beds and boutiques, and I would drive down the lakefront, past the gleaming skyscrapers of downtown, and I would end up in the largely Black, often disinvested communities of the city's south side, pockmarked with weedy, vacant lots, boarded up buildings, and check-cashing outlets. And every evening, I would make the same drive in reverse. You see, the other thing that Chicago is known for, and which you've now heard about a little bit from both of our previous speakers, is that Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in America. Born out of racism, spurred on by bank redlining, and hardwired by so-called urban renewal projects that demolished neighborhoods and replaced them with expressways. As you heard on the last panel, in a city like Chicago, too often zip code is destiny. I started thinking about the role of the lack of capital and how that was affecting the disparities that I was seeing every day during an internship at South Shore Bank, the nation's first community development bank. I wanted more answers to what was going on, and so after I graduated, I took a job at the bank. I tried out lots of different roles during my time there in my search for solutions. And around the year 2000, I was asked to help implement the bank's first online banking platform. The internet had become publicly available in the mid-1990s, ushering in a technological revolution. And by the year 2000, most US households had at least one personal computer at home. I'll never forget the day that I was asked to train longtime civic leader and bank board member Bud Lifton in how to log in and use the new system. Let's just say it was a preview of what many of us face with our own parents and grandparents as we help them use their smartphones and other devices. Technical challenges aside, people like Bud, people like me, could easily benefit from the convenient, real-time access to information provided by online banking because we had computers at home. We had dial-up internet access. We lived in neighborhoods rich with bank branches. And we had families that took us to the bank to open that first account when we were children. We had networks of people who could answer our money questions as we grew older. Bud had me on speed dial. And one afternoon, after one of those calls with Bud, helping him log in, as I was leaving my second-floor cubicle at the bank and heading down through the lobby, crowded with little old ladies waiting to have their passbooks updated, and out the front door, where I could see people coming and going from the check casher directly across the street, I began to wonder, what if the technological revolution could transform the financial lives of all of those left out and left behind? It turned out that I had stumbled upon a question that had the potential to bring tens of millions of Americans into the financial system, turn a multi-trillion-dollar industry on its axis, and ultimately forge a new economy centered around financial health for all. And so over a century after a group of innovative architects leveraged the technology of their day to give birth to a better Chicago, I went looking for their modern-day counterparts. I launched what was then called the Center for Financial Services Innovation, or CFSI, to support innovators who were using technology to solve problems keeping people out of the financial system. From our research, we knew that one of the biggest pain points was access to credit, and you've heard a lot about that this afternoon. You needed a good credit score to get a loan, and if you couldn't get a loan, how were you supposed to build a good credit score? But it wasn't just loans. Renting an apartment, getting insurance, even getting some jobs were a lot more difficult with a bad credit score. Jose Quinones was witnessing the impact of this conundrum in his largely Mexican immigrant community of the Mission in San Francisco, where almost half of all households lacked a credit score. Some of those families turned to payday lenders, but others turned to tandas, informal borrowing groups popular in Latin America. Jose realized that if he could marry the tradition of social borrowing with the formality of the credit system, he could really help his community. And so CFSI gave Jose and his new organization, the Mission Asset Fund, seed funding to build that technology. You'll get to hear directly from Jose tomorrow during one of our morning plenary sessions. And hopefully you all heard Wimimo Abe, who spoke just a little while ago about the work his company, Isuzu, is doing to help provide access to credit in a completely different way, giving renters the same credit for their monthly rent payments that homeowners get for their monthly mortgage payments. Like the Mission Asset Fund, we also invested in Isuzu and about a half dozen other companies that were all taking different approaches to improving access to credit for those overlooked by the traditional system. And 20 years on, that system is changing a lot. People have more opportunities to build, improve, and access credit than ever before as lenders look beyond the traditional credit score to make better, more inclusive decisions. In fact, technology has brought numerous systemic changes to financial services in ways large and small. Prepaid debit cards and digital payment platforms are enabling people to get paid, receive their government benefits, and pay their bills in real time and more easily and cheaply. Automated savings platforms are helping people build a financial cushion and major employers are adding emergency savings products to their roster of employee benefits. Fintech competition has driven banks and credit unions to upgrade their systems and improve their offerings so that today, whether you bank at Chime or at Chase, you too can get access to your wages a day or two before payday, which is a really big deal if you're living paycheck to paycheck. Technology really has changed the game. And yet, at some point along the way, it became clear to us that technology wasn't going to be the silver bullet. Convincing people who would likely benefit the most from these newfangled fintech apps to use them was actually pretty challenging. And when we went into communities to listen to people and understand why, we learned that something was missing: trust. And it wasn't so much trust in technology. It was trust in the financial system itself. Why should the product that I get from an app on my phone be any more trustworthy than the product I get from the bank down the street when that bank may not be willing to do business with me or my family or my community? The financial crisis hardened these long-held beliefs that banks made more money by hurting their customers than by helping them succeed. Trust is so easy to destroy and so very hard to build. What could our organization do? Well, we realized that to start, we could define what good products and practices should look like. And so we created the Compass Principles, aspirational guidelines for financial providers around what constitutes quality. Embrace inclusion, build trust, promote success, and create opportunity. We applied those principles to products like prepaid cards and small dollar loans. We then benchmarked the products and practices of leading companies, gave them a collective letter grade, and published the results. And over time, industry practices improved. But we started to wonder, how could we be sure that those improvements were actually translating into improvements for people's financial lives? We realized that focusing on products and practices wasn't enough if what we really cared about were outcomes. And so we set out to identify what we thought was the ultimate outcome: a financial system that enables people to be resilient and thrive. We decided to call that financial health. We then did the research to learn how to measure financial health, and we created the Financial Health Pulse to understand the state of financial health in America and how it changed year over year. Over time, dozens of companies and organizations, including many of you in this room, started leveraging our financial health score to better understand the financial situations of your workers and your customers. We even created a technology platform, Attune, to make financial health measurement seamless. If you haven't seen the platform in action or met its CEO, Andy Bandyopadhyay, I really encourage you to check them out tomorrow during the first Innovators Showcase. So at this point, we've got financial technology and quality principles and financial health measurement tools, and yet still something was missing because not everybody was benefiting. Our 2020 Financial Health Pulse data, for instance, documented a 24 percentage point gap in financial health between Black and white people. 24 points. We documented similar gaps for the Latinx community and for other identity groups. And then COVID hit, bringing those inequities into sharp focus as Black and brown people began dying at rates far beyond those of white people. And then George Floyd was murdered, and our world turned upside down. And as the nation began to reckon and grapple with its long, shameful, painful history around race, companies, including many of yours, committed billions of dollars to initiatives to put more capital into the hands of Black people and their communities. And yet, despite good intentions, not that much has changed. And so that brings us to today, a moment of pride and reckoning. Pride in just how much we've accomplished, and a reckoning with just how much more work there is to do to achieve financial health for all. The journey is clearly not over yet, and it's going to take all of us to succeed. If there's one thing I knew when I started this crazy quest 20 years ago, it was that no one company or organization could single-handedly solve all of the problems keeping people out of the financial system. And so over the years, we built a vibrant network of banks and credit unions and fintechs, of employers and HR leaders, insurers and investors, nonprofit practitioners, policymakers, researchers, nearly 500 organizations committed to financial health. I bet every single person in this room has a story about how they helped a customer or a worker succeed with a new product that they offered or a new benefit that they provided. But if we want to get past the individual success stories and build a new economy that works for everybody, we need a new way of building, from the ground up and from the inside out. Remember that world's first skyscraper, the home insurance building? It wasn't that special looking from the outside. It was what was on the inside that made it so special, that gave it its height, its strength, its integrity. Innovative architects and engineers devised new ways of building, digging deep foundations and using steel beams. And city officials codified these methods to ensure that the second city would be resilient and thrive. And so as we forge a new economy, we must ensure that what emerges enables everyone to be resilient and thrive, just like that first skyscraper. And to do that, we need to build a foundation of equity and standards for financial health. So how do we build a foundation of equity so that zip code is no longer destiny? Well, before we can build anything, we have to understand the financial situations of our customers and our workers. And that means collecting and disaggregating data by race and ethnicity and by gender to understand the differences across groups. We cannot claim to be building a foundation of equity if we don't even have the data to understand today's inequities. And yet that's exactly what's happening. And so we need to come together and do the hard work to ensure that we can access the data we need to meet people where they are and deliver more customized products and experiences. Then we dig deep, analyzing all of our internal processes to assess how decisions are made and who makes them. We need to have diverse voices and perspectives at the table when we're deciding what benefits to give our workers or who should get that loan. And we need to make sure that our models are fair. As we dig and we build, we then need to standardize our approach so that every financial institution and every workplace supports financial health. Standards can be a powerful lever of systemic change, transforming industries by providing clear expectations around behaviors, practices, and policies. With standards, financial health can finally become the norm. Now, we are not in the same position that Chicago was in after the Great Fire, when they were building from scratch. We have been working to put out principles and frameworks and best practices for the better part of 2 decades. Consider our FinHealth map, a framework for defining the key elements of a financial health strategy: vision, infrastructure, performance, and solutions. 4 years ago, J.D. Power leveraged this framework to create a new financial health certification program for the nation's largest banks. Bank of America was the first to be certified. In fact, they've now been certified 3 years in a row. And you'll have a chance to hear the company's formula for success at a masterclass tomorrow afternoon. We partnered with J.D. Power because we had learned that we couldn't just publish a blueprint and expect everyone to follow it. If we're trying to change a multi-trillion-dollar industry, we've got to create the incentives that drive companies to make positive change. We've heard from many of you that you'd really like the opportunity to measure your company's financial health performance relative to that of your peers and your competitors. And thanks to the ongoing support of the MetLife Foundation, we've just begun the work to create the next generation of financial health standards and to create opportunities for benchmarking. We're also incredibly excited to partner with the Corporate Racial Equity Alliance on its journey to implement new corporate standards around reducing inequality. To hear more about this effort and other standard-setting initiatives around the country, you might want to check out one of our breakout sessions tomorrow afternoon. I don't need to tell you that our world is changing rapidly and dramatically. 20 years ago, it was the internet fueling the drive to financial inclusion and health. Today, AI is accelerating innovation at a pace beyond our wildest imaginations. Like Celia, I believe that we can harness the power of AI to help make us healthier and wealthier, but only if we build it with a foundation of equity and with standards for financial health. It's the only way to build and maintain the trust of our customers, our workers, and our communities. 153 years ago, the spot where you're sitting right now was engulfed in flames. In the wake of the Great Chicago Fire, the people of this city dusted themselves off and got to work, determined to build a second city. Your being here today demonstrates that you are as determined as they were to build an economy that works for everyone, not just the people in the top floors of the skyscraper, every single person in the streets and in the neighborhoods below. Together, we will build a new economy that supports financial health for all, an inclusive economy as strong and as vibrant as this city of big shoulders, this place I call home. That's why we're here. Welcome to Chicago. Let's build the future.